The sun hung low in the sky, its fading light stretching the shadows of twisted trees across the winding road. As the group's beat-up SUV rumbled toward Blackwood Forest, Alex gripped the steering wheel tight, his knuckles whitening against the cracked leather. The GPS had crapped out a few miles back, the screen flickering before going blank. But he didn't need it anymore. Blackwood loomed ahead, a dark smear on the horizon, its thick canopy swallowing the last rays of daylight. "We're almost there," Alex said. His voice steadied, despite the weird mix of excitement and unease churning in his chest. He flicked a glance at Mia in the passenger seat, her camera already out, snapping shots of the encroaching tree line. She flashed a quick smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Something about this place felt off, too quiet, too still. In the back seat, Jake sprawled out, legs kicked up over the armrest. "You're sure this is it? Looks like the set of a slasher flick." He let out a loud laugh, but it sounded forced, brittle. "Bet you $10 we're back at the car by midnight." Begging for a motel, Sarah, crammed next to him, clutched her backpack like it was a lifeline. "Can you not talk about horror movies right now?" she muttered, her voice barely audible. She'd been against this trip from the jump, but peer pressure and Mia's relentless enthusiasm had dragged her along. Ben, the last of the crew, sat quietly in the back, nose buried in a map. According to this, Blackwood hasn't seen foot traffic in decades. No trails, no campsites, just forest. He adjusted his glasses, frowning. "Weird thing is, there's a blank spot right in the middle of the map, like it was never charted." Alex shrugged. "Probably outdated data. That's what makes it fun, right? We're explorers." Mia twisted around, her camera flashing as she snapped a pic of the group. "Smile, guys. This trip's gonna be epic." The SUV jolted as it hit a pothole, the road narrowing into a gravel track just wide enough to squeeze through. Branches scraped the roof like skeletal fingers, and Alex eased off the gas, navigating the tight curves until the path dead-ended at a small clearing. He killed the engine and silence crashed in like a wave. "End of the line," Alex said, forcing a grin. "We're hoofing it from here." They piled out, stretching stiff limbs and grabbing their gear. The air was colder than they'd expected, thick with pine and damp earth, but underneath there was something else. A faint metallic tang that stung Mia's throat. She swallowed hard, shaking it off. Alex slung his pack over his shoulder, nodding toward a gap in the trees. "There's a trail over there, or at least there used to be." Ben squinted at the overgrown path, half hidden by weeds. "Doesn't look like anyone's been through here in years. You sure it's safe?" "Safe enough," Alex shot back, his tone breezy. But as he stepped onto the trail, a chill slithered down his spine. The forest exhaled, a faint ripple rustling the leaves overhead. Mia clicked off another shot, the flash cutting through the gloom. For a split second, she thought she saw something through the lens. A shadow, tall and thin, darting between the trunks. She blinked, and it was gone. "You okay?" Sarah asked, catching her hesitation. Mia forced a laugh. "Yeah, just thought I saw something. Probably a deer." But as they pushed deeper into the woods, unease settled over them like fog. The bark on some of the ancient oaks peeled back in strips, revealing knots that looked like faces, hollow eyes, and gaping mouths carved into the wood. Jake nudged Alex, pointing at one particularly freaky tree. "Looks like your axe," he quipped, smirking. But his usual bravado sounded hollow. Alex rolled his eyes. "Shut up, Jake." They trekked for hours, though the sun barely budged in the sky. Time felt warped, the forest muffling their footsteps and swallowing their chatter. Sarah kept glancing over her shoulder, convinced she'd heard something. A whisper, a snapping twig. But every time, it was just the endless stretch of trees staring back. Finally, they hit a small clearing next to a sluggish creek, its water murky and dark. "I am still dropping his pack," Alex decided, dropping his pack. "We'll set up here. Explore more tomorrow." As they pitched their tents, the forest seemed to watch. The canopy swayed gently, though there wasn't a breeze. Branches creaking like old bones. Mia tried snapping pics of the scene, but the shots came out blurry. Colors washed out and distorted. She frowned, fiddling with the settings, but everything checked out. Must be the light, she muttered, even though the sun still lingered on the horizon, casting a weak golden glow. Ben, ever the engineer, busied himself with the campfire, stacking twigs and logs with precision. But when he struck a match, the flame flared and died, refusing to catch. He tried again, then again, frustration creeping in. Come on, it's not rocket science, Jake teased, snatching the matches. But even he couldn't get the fire going. The pile sat cold and stubborn, like it was rejecting the heat. A chill seeped into the air, and Sarah hugged her knees tighter. Maybe we should just eat some sandwiches and crash, Alex nodded, though his jaw clenched with unease. They ate in silence, the only sounds the rustling leaves and a distant owl's hoot. But as night fell, the noises shifted. The owl's call stretched longer, turning into a pained wail, and beneath it, something new. A low, steady thump, like a heartbeat buried deep underground. Goosebumps prickled Mia's arms. You guys hear that? Jake tilted his head, listening. Yeah, kinda like drums or something. Any towns nearby? Ben shook his head. Nothing for miles. We're in the middle of nowhere. The thumping grew louder, vibrating through the dirt. Sarah's eyes widened, darting around the clearing. It's getting closer. Alex stood peering into the dark, probably just an animal. A bear or... A sharp crack split the air, like a tree snapping in half. The group froze, heads whipping toward the sound. Beyond the clearing, the shadows seemed to shift, stretching, coiling, then settling back into place. Okay, that wasn't a bear, Jake said, his voice cracking. Mia grabbed her camera, hands shaky as she aimed it at the trees. The flash popped, illuminating the forest for a heartbeat. In the split-second glare, she saw it. A figure, impossibly tall, its limbs bent at wrong angles, standing just beyond the tree line. The shutter clicked, and darkness rushed back in. What the hell was that? Sarah whispered, scooting closer to Ben. Mia checked the camera screen, her breath catching. The photo was empty, just trees and shadows. Whatever she'd seen was gone. Probably a trick of the light, Alex said, but his fists were clenched tight. The thumping faded, replaced by a new sound. Faint, overlapping whispers drifting through the air. They weren't words, not yet, just a hiss of breath that prickled the back of their necks. Sarah whimpered, pulling her hood up like it could shield her. Let's get in the tents, Ben said, his voice low. We'll figure it out in the morning. They scrambled inside, zipping up the flaps as the whispers grew sharper, threading into something almost intelligible. Go. Away. Mind. The air turned heavy, pressing down on them like a weight. Jake cracked a nervous joke about haunted forests, but no one laughed. Mia clutched her camera, replaying that flash of a figure in her mind. It hadn't been a deer. It hadn't even been human. She glanced at Alex, his face pale in the dim light of their lantern. He met her eyes, and for once he didn't have a reassuring grin. Outside, the trees creaked louder, their branches scraping together like claws on glass. A shadow passed over the tent, long and thin, lingering just a second too long. Sarah stifled a sob, and Ben grabbed his flashlight, flicking it on. The beam swept across the tent wall, catching nothing but fabric. It's just the wind, he said, but his hand shook. The whispers stopped abruptly, leaving a silence so thick it buzzed in their ears. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, a low growl rolled out, shaking the ground beneath them. It wasn't an animal. It was bigger, older, something that didn't belong in this world. Jake swallowed hard. Tell me that's not what I think it is. No one answered. They sat there, frozen, as the growl faded into the night, leaving only the rustle of leaves and the pounding of their own hearts. Blackwood Forest wasn't just a place. It was awake, and it knew they were here. The morning after their first night in Blackwood Forest dawned gray and heavy, the sky choked with clouds that seemed to press down on the treetops. Alex was the first out of the tent, stretching his stiff limbs and kicking at the cold campfire that refused to light. Rise and shine. Slackers, he called, his voice cutting through the damp air. We've got a waterfall to find today. Mia crawled out next, her camera slung around her neck. She rubbed sleep from her eyes, still rattled by last night's growls and whispers. You sure about this? After whatever that was? It was just the woods messing with us, Alex said, brushing it off. But his grin was tighter than usual, his eyes darting to the tree line. Jake stumbled out, zipping up his hoodie. Yeah, totally normal for a forest to growl like a damn chainsaw. You're buying us all beers when we get back. Sarah emerged last, her face pale and drawn, clutching a water bottle like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I didn't sleep. Those whispers, they didn't stop. Ben, already outside checking his gear, frowned at his compass. The needle spun lazily, refusing to settle. This thing's useless out here. Magnetic interference or something. Alex clapped his hands. Who needs a compass? We've got a trail and a plan. Let's move. They packed up, leaving the tents pitched, and headed deeper into Blackwood, aiming for the waterfall Jake had read about on some sketchy forum. The path was overgrown, roots snaking across the dirt like veins. But Alex led the charge, machete in hand, hacking at the underbrush. The air grew thicker, the metallic tang sharper, stinging their noses. Mia lagged behind, snapping pics of the towering pines and oaks. She paused, squinting at a cluster of trees ahead. Hey, didn't we pass those already? That crooked one with the split trunk? Jake glanced over. Nah, they all look the same out here. Forest deja vu. But Ben stopped, tapping his chin. She's right. That tree was on our left 20 minutes ago. Now it's ahead of us. Alex snorted. Trees don't move, genius. You're just turned around. A sharp snap echoed behind them, loud as a rifle shot. They spun, hearts pounding, but the trail was empty, just shadows swaying in the faint light. Sarah hugged herself, her voice trembling. Something's following us. It's probably a squirrel, Jake said, forcing a laugh. But his eyes stayed locked on the trees. They pressed on, the forest closing in tighter. The canopy blocked out most of the sky, casting everything in a dim greenish haze. Mia's camera clicked again, capturing a gnarled oak with bark that peeled back like burned skin. She froze, staring at the screen. In the corner of the shot, a shadow stretched, long and thin with jagged edges that didn't match any branch. Guys, she whispered, holding up the camera. Look at this. Alex leaned in, squinting. What am I looking at? That shadow. It's not attached to anything. Ben adjusted his glasses, peering closer. Could be a glitch or light bouncing weird. Before anyone could argue, a low hum rumbled through the ground, vibrating up their legs. Sarah yelped, grabbing Mia's arm. That's not a glitch. The hum grew, a guttural drone that buzzed in their skulls. Jake clapped his hands over his ears. What the hell is that? Then it stopped, replaced by whispers, soft at first, threading through the leaves. Stay here. Mine. The voices overlapped, raspy and broken, like a radio stuck between stations. Alex clenched his jaw. Okay, that's freaky, but we're not turning back now. Waterfall's gotta be close. They pushed forward, the whispers trailing them like ghosts. The trail twisted, narrowing until they had to walk single file. Mia kept her camera up, snapping shots, each flash revealing more. Claw marks gouged into a trunk, deep and fresh, oozing dark sap that smelled like rot. She gagged, stepping back. Something big did that, she said, her voice shaking. Jake kicked a rock. Yeah, like a bear with a grudge. Awesome. Sarah stopped dead, her eyes wide. I heard my name, right there in the whispers. Ben frowned. That's impossible. It's just wind or... Say that again when it's your name, she snapped, her voice cracking. A branch snapped overhead, showering them with dead leaves. They ducked, scanning the canopy, but nothing moved. The air turned colder, their breaths puffing out in faint clouds. Mia's next photo caught something worse. A pair of glowing red dots hovering between the trees. Gone when the flash faded. Tell me you saw that, she said, shoving the camera at Alex. He stared at the screen, his bravado slipping. Okay, that's not normal. The hum returned, louder, shaking loose dirt from the roots. Sarah bolted forward, panic taking over. We need to get out of here. Sarah, wait, Alex yelled, but she was already sprinting down the trail. The group chased after her, branches whipping their faces, until she vanished around a bend. Her scream pierced the air, sharp and raw, then cut off. They found her a minute later, crumpled in a clearing, her scarf shredded and tangled in a thorn bush. She was shaking, eyes glassy, mumbling. It was right there. So tall, breathing on me. Alex knelt beside her. What you see? She pointed a trembling finger at the trees. Something huge. It didn't have a face. Ben scanned the area, flashlight in hand. But the beam caught only trunks and shadows. There's nothing here now. Maybe she tripped, freaked out. I didn't trip, Sarah shouted, tears streaking her face. It was real. Mia hugged her, glancing at Alex. We should head back. But when they turned to retrace their steps, the trail was gone. The trees had shifted, closing off the path like a wall. Jake swore, kicking at the dirt. This is some Blair Witch bullshit. Ben's compass spun faster, useless. This doesn't make sense. Trees don't just move. Tell that to the forest. Alex muttered, his voice tight. The whispers surged, louder now, forming jagged words. You can't leave. A shadow flickered at the edge of the clearing. Tall, hunched, gone in a blink. Mia's camera clicked, but the screen showed only static. Night fell fast, the gray sky swallowed by black. They stumbled back to camp, guided by Alex's shaky memory, only to find the tents surrounded by trees that hadn't been there before. Clearing was smaller, the creek closer, its water black as oil. Someone's screwing with us, Jake said, his laugh turning into a cough. This isn't possible. Ben knelt by the creek, dipping a finger in. He yanked it back, wincing. It's sworn, like blood. Sarah whimpered, curling into a ball. Mia's flashlight swept the trees, catching a glint. Something metallic, half buried in the dirt. She dug it up. A rusted pocket knife, its blade etched with initials. JR, someone's been here, she said, holding it up. Alex grabbed it, turning it over. Could be decades old. Doesn't mean anything. A guttural growl rolled through the camp, low and wet, rattling their bones. The trees creaked, bending inward like they were listening. Sarah screamed, pointing at the creek. Ripples spread across the surface, but nothing had touched it. We're not alone, Mia whispered, her camera trembling in her hands. The growl came again, closer, from the shadows beyond the tents. Jake grabbed a stick, brandishing it like a club. Come on out, you bastard! A shape emerged. Not fully, just a silhouette against the trees. It was massive, its limbs impossibly long, swaying like branches in a storm. Red eyes flared, bright as embers, then winked out. The group froze, breaths held as the whispers turned into a chant. Mine, mine, mine. Alex stepped forward, machete raised. Stay back, whatever you are. The shape vanished, but the air grew heavy, pressing down on their chests. Mia's flashlight flickered, then died. In the darkness, something scraped against the tents. Slow, deliberate, like claws testing fabric. Ben whispered, "We need to stick together." "It's playing with us." Sarah sobbed, rocking back and forth. "It knows my name. It knows me." The scraping stopped, replaced by a wet, sucking sound, like footsteps in mud. Mia swung her camera around, the flash popping wildly. Each burst lit up the camp. A claw mark on a tent, a tree trunk split open, sap dripping like blood. Then, in one frame, she caught it. A figure, skeletal and pale, crouched just beyond the light, its head tilted at an impossible angle. She dropped the camera, gasping. That's it. That's what she saw. Alex picked it up, staring at the screen. The figure was gone, but the image burned into his mind. Skin stretched tight over jagged bones. No face, just those red eyes. The forest went silent, the kind of quiet that screams in your ears. Then from the trees a single whisper hissed out, clear as day. Run. They didn't. They couldn't. The trees tightened around them, roots curling up from the dirt like fingers, and the growl returned, closer, hungrier. Blackwood wasn't just a forest anymore. It was a trap, and they were the prey. The second night in Blackwood Forest crashed down like a guillotine, the darkness so thick it felt like ink pouring over the camp. The group huddled in their tents, flashlights flickering, breath fogging in the icy air. The whispers had stopped, but the silence was worse. Heavy, suffocating, like the forest was holding its breath. Alex gripped his machete, eyes locked on the tent flap. "We stay awake," he said, his voice hoarse. "Whatever's out there, we're not letting it sneak up on us." Mia clutched her camera, the last photo of that skeletal thing still haunting her. "It's not sneaking, it's waiting." Jake paced the tiny space, stick in hand, his usual smirk gone. "Waiting for what? To eat us? This is insane." Sarah rocked back and forth, muttering under her breath, her sanity fraying. Ben sat cross-legged, flashlight trained on the tent wall, jumping at every creak. "We need a plan. We can't just sit here." A low growl rumbled outside, shaking the ground. The tents quivered, stakes pulling loose from the dirt. Sarah whimpered, clapping her hands over her ears. Before anyone could react, a deafening roar split the night. Deep, guttural, like a freight train crashing through bone. The tent flap ripped open, and there it was, the warden, 10 Fatale. Its skeletal frame loomed in the doorway. Pale skin stretched tight over jagged ribs that jutted out like spears. Its arms were too long, bending at wrong angles, ending in claws that glinted black as obsidian. Its head tilted, revealing a mouth of needle-sharp teeth, splitting into a grin that stretched ear to ear. Worst of all were its eyes, red, glowing like molten steel, boring into them. "Run!" Alex screamed, swinging his machete. The blade slashed across the warden's arm, sparking against its skin like metal on stone. It didn't flinch. Jake bolted first, shoving past Sarah and scrambling out the back of the tent. Mia grabbed Sarah's arm, dragging her up, while Ben fumbled for his pack. The warden lunged, its claws raking the air where Jake had been. The tent collapsed under its weight, fabric tearing like paper. They scattered into the night, the forest erupting around them. Trees twisted, trunks bending like rubber, blocking paths with walls of bark. Roots burst from the soil, snagging at their ankles. Mia's flashlight beamed down wildly, catching glimpses of the warden, its lanky form darting between trunks, faster than anything that big should be. Jake's scream cut through the chaos, high and panicked. "Help! It's got me!" They spun toward the sound, just in time to see him trip over a root, his stick flying from his hand. The warden loomed over him, claws raised. Alex charged, yelling, "Get off him!" But he was too late. The claws came down, slicing through Jake's chest with a wet crunch. Blood sprayed, dark and glistening, as his body went limp, impaled on a branch that shot up from the ground like a spear. His ribs splayed open, a grotesque bloom of bone and meat. Zara shrieked, collapsing to her knees. Mia yanked her up, tears streaming down her face. "Move, Sarah, move." The warden turned, its red eyes locking on them. That grin widened, teeth glinting in the moonlight. It didn't run. It glided, its limbs folding and unfolding like a spider's, closing the gap in seconds. Ben grabbed a rock, hurling it at the creature. It bounced off its skull with a dull thunk, useless. "Keep going," Alex shouted, shoving Mia and Sarah ahead. He swung the machete again, aiming for its legs, but the warden sidestepped, impossibly agile. Its claw lashed out, grazing his shoulder, tearing through his jacket and drawing blood. He grunted, stumbling back. The forest walked around them, trees snapping into new positions like trapdoors. A pine lurched forward, its branches coiling around Ben's legs. He yelled, clawing at the dirt as it dragged him backward. "No, no, no, no!" Mia lunged for him, but the warden was faster. It grabbed Ben by the neck, lifting him off the ground. His glasses fell, shattering on a root, and with a sickening snap, it twisted his spine. His body went ragdoll limp, head lolling at an unnatural angle, before it flung him into the dark. "Ben!" Sarah wailed, her voice raw. Mia pulled her along, sobbing, as Alex limped behind, blood soaking his sleeve. The warden's growl followed them, a wet, rolling sound that vibrated through the trees. They ran blind, the forest a maze of shifting trunks and snapping branches. Mia's flashlight died, plunging them into blackness broken only by the warden's glowing eyes. Two red beacons weaving through the chaos. A root snagged Sarah's foot, sending her sprawling. She clawed at the dirt, screaming, "Don't leave me!" Alex doubled back, hacking at the root with his machete. It bled sap, thick, black, stinking of rot, as it released her. "Get up now!" he barked, hauling her to her feet. The warden's claws swiped again, missing Alex by inches, shredding a tree instead. Bark exploded, showering them with splinters. Mia spotted a gap ahead, a rocky outcrop near the waterfall they'd been chasing. "There! We can hide!" They sprinted for it, the roar of water growing louder, drowning out the warden's growls. The cave behind the falls was narrow, its mouth slick with moss. They squeezed inside, pressing against the damp walls, panting. The air smelled of mold, and something sour, like decay. "Is it gone?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Alex peeked out, his machete dripping with sap and blood. The waterfall's mist obscured the forest, but those red eyes glowed through the haze, pacing just beyond the curtain of water. "It's still out there?" Mia hugged her knees, camera abandoned on the cave floor. "What is that thing?" Ben's absence hit them like a punch. Sarah rocked, muttering his name, while Alex wiped sweat from his brow, wincing at his torn shoulder. The cave walls pulsed faintly, a slow rhythm like a heartbeat. Mia frowned, pressing a hand to the stone. "Guys, this isn't normal. It's alive." A shadow loomed outside, the warden's silhouette stretching across the falls. Its claws scraped the rock, a high-pitched screech that set their teeth on edge. Sarah clapped her hands over her ears, sobbing. "Make it stop." Alex gripped his machete tighter. "We can't stay here. It'll get in." But before they could move, Sarah bolted upright, eyes wild. I can't do this!" She ran for the cave mouth, slipping on the wet stone. Mia lunged after her, but Sarah vanished into the mist, her scream echoing once before cutting off. "Sarah!" Mia yelled, her voice breaking. Alex pulled her back as the warden's growl rumbled closer, shaking the cave. The creature stepped through the falls, water streaming off its bony frame. Up close, it was worse. Its skin wasn't just pale, it was translucent, veins pulsing black beneath. Its jaw unhinged, letting out a hiss that smelled of death. Alex shoved Mia behind him, raising the machete. "Stay back, you freak!" he swung, but the warden caught the blade in its claws, snapping it like a twig. Mia grabbed a flare gun from Ben's dropped pack, hands shaking as she aimed. Eat this!" The flare shot out, a blazing streak of red, and hit the warden square in the chest. It roared, staggering back, flames licking its skin, but they fizzled out fast, leaving only scorch marks. The warden lunged, its claws slashing Alex's leg. He crumpled, blood pooling on the cave floor, yelling through gritted teeth. Mia screamed, dragging him deeper into the cave as the creature advanced, its eyes blazing brighter. The walls pulsed faster, slick with moisture that wasn't water. Dark, sticky like blood. "It's not just the monster," Mia gasped, realization hitting. "The forest. It's feeding it." The warden's claws scraped the ceiling, raining dust and stone. Alex clutched his leg, face pale. "Then we're screwed." A crack split the air, the cave entrance collapsing, rocks tumbling as the warden lunged again. Mia pulled Alex back, narrowly dodging its grasp. The creature's arm shot through the gap, clawing at the air, inches from her face. Its hiss turned into a laugh, low, wet, and wrong. They were trapped, the warden clawing at the rubble, and Blackwood closing in. The cave trembled, roots breaking through the walls, curling toward them like hungry tendrils. This wasn't just a hunt, it was a slaughter, and they were running out of time. The cave behind the waterfall shook as the warden's claws scraped at the collapsed entrance, dust and pebbles raining down on Mia and Alex. The air was thick with the stench of rot and wet stone, the walls pulsing like a living thing. Alex slumped against a rock, clutching his bleeding leg, his face slick with sweat. "We're dead," he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "That thing's gonna claw its way in." Mia crouched beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed her jacket against the gash on his thigh. Blood soaked through the fabric, hot and sticky. "Shut up and hold still," she snapped, her voice cracking. "We're not dying here." The warden's hiss echoed through the rubble, low and guttural, vibrating in their chests. Its claws gouged the stone, sending sparks flying, but the pile held. For now. Mia's eyes darted around the cave, searching for anything to fight back with. The flare gun lay spent on the floor, its last shot a fading memory. Her camera sat nearby, lens cracked, a useless relic of their doomed trip. A root slithered through a crack in the wall, thin and black, curling toward Alex's leg like it could smell the blood. Mia stomped on it, grinding her heel until it snapped with a wet pop. "This place is alive," she said, her breath hitching. "It's not just that monster, it's the whole damn forest." Alex groaned, shifting his weight. "Then what's the point? We're stuck in its gut." The cave shuddered again, a deep groan rumbling from below. Mia's flashlight flickered back to life, its weak beam catching something wedged in the rock. A leather-bound journal, its edges rotting, pages yellowed and curling. She pried it free, hands shaking as she flipped it open. The ink was faded, smudged by damp, but the words were legible. "Property of Elias Carver, 1873. Alex, look at this," she said, holding it up. "Someone's been here before." He squinted, pain-etching lines into his face. "What's it say?" Mia scanned the pages, her voice trembling as she read aloud. "We came to Blackwood seeking timber, but found something else. The locals warned us, said the forest was cursed, guarded by a spirit they called the Warden. We laughed it off. Then the tree started moving." She flipped ahead, her stomach twisting. "It's not just a guardian, it's a prison. We made a deal, blood for protection, but it twisted the pact. Now it takes us one by one, feeds on us. The warden's claws scraped louder, stone cracking under its grip. Mia kept reading, her voice rising. The trees are its eyes. They shift to trap you, hold you for it. The last of us tried to burn it out, but the fire wouldn't take. It's in the roots, the soil, everywhere. She stopped, staring at the final line. It sees through us. It becomes us. Alex swallowed hard. Becomes us? What the hell does that mean? Before Mia could answer, the cave floor shifted, a slab of rock tilting under their weight. She grabbed Alex's arm, pulling him back as it dropped away, revealing a jagged pit. Stagnant water glinted below, black and oily, littered with bones. Human, animal, too many to count. A skull bobbed on the surface, its jaw hanging loose, eye sockets staring up at them. Jesus, Mia whispered, bile rising in her throat. This is where it keeps them. The warden roared outside, the sound bouncing off the cave walls. A chunk of the entrance gave way, its claw thrusting through, swiping at the air. Mia dragged Alex deeper, away from the pit, her mind racing. That journal, it said the forest feeds it. What if we're not just prey? What if it's turning us into something? Alex's eyes widened, panic flaring. Like Sarah, she ran out there, and we didn't hear her die. The thought hung heavy, a knife twisting in Mia's gut. She shook her head, forcing it down. We need to get out. There's gotta be another way. The cave stretched back, narrowing into a tunnel lined with roots that pulsed like veins. Mia's flashlight flickered again, casting shadows that danced like figures on the walls. She helped Alex limp forward, his weight dragging on her shoulder. The warden's growls faded slightly, muffled by the rubble, but the roots kept moving, brushing their legs like curious fingers. A faint hum buzzed through the tunnel, the same guttural drone I'd heard before. Mia's beam caught a carving on the wall, a crude sketch of the warden, its claws raised, surrounded by stick figure humans kneeling. Below it, words scratched in desperation. Blood binds it! Blood binds it! Mia muttered, piecing it together. That's what Carver meant. They gave it blood, and it took everything else. Alex coughed, blood flecking his lips. Great, so were dessert. The tunnel widened into a chamber, its ceiling dripping with moisture that wasn't water. Dark, viscous, pooling on the floor. In the center sat a pile of debris, rusted tools, shredded clothes, a broken lantern. Mia rifled through it, finding a flare, cracked but intact. This might work, she said, tucking it into her pocket. A wet slap echoed behind them, footsteps slow and deliberate. Mia spun, flashlight trembling. The beam caught a shadow at the tunnel's mouth. Tall, hunched, red eyes glinting. The warden had found another way in. Move, she yelled, shoving Alex ahead. He stumbled, grunting as his leg buckled, but she kept him upright. The warden's claws scraped the walls, a screeching wail that clawed at their eardrums. Roots shot up, blocking their path, but Mia stomped through, snapping them underfoot. The chamber opened to a ledge overlooking the forest. The waterfalls roared, deafening below. The trees outside swayed, parting briefly to reveal a sliver of open road. Freedom, tantalizingly close. They can make it. Alex leaned on her, his breath ragged. You go. I'm slowing you down. No way, she snapped, tightening her grip. We're both getting out. The warden's growl rolled up from the tunnel, closer now. Mia glanced back. Its silhouette filled the passage, eyes blazing, claws dragging sparks from the stone. She pulled Alex toward the ledge, the trees shifting again, threatening to close the gap. Con, we're jumping. Con, we're jumping. They staggered to the edge, the drop dizzying, 20 feet to the rocks below. The waterfall's mist soaking their faces. The warden burst into the chamber, its jaw unhinging with a sickening crack, letting out a roar that shook the cave. Mia lit the flare, its red glow hissing to life, and hurled it at the creature. It struck its chest, flames flaring, but the warden swatted it away, unfazed. "Go!" she screamed, shoving Alex toward the gap. He stumbled through, crashing onto the forest floor beyond the trees, rolling into the dirt. Mia turned to follow, but the warden's claw shot out, grazing her arm, tearing a gash that burned like fire. She yelled, diving forward as the trees snapped shut behind her. The warden's roar faded, cut off by the closing forest. But Mia's relief was short-lived. She crawled to Alex, who lay sprawled on the road, blood pooling beneath him. "Stay with me," she pleaded, shaking him. His eyes fluttered, unfocused. Headlights pierced the dawn, a truck rumbling toward them. Mia waved frantically, screaming, "Help! Over here!" The driver, a grizzled guy in a flannel shirt, slammed on the brakes, jumping out. "What the hell happened to you kids? Get us out!" Mia sobbed, helping him lift Alex into the cab. The truck peeled out, tires screeching, as Blackwood receded in the rearview mirror. But as they sped away, Mia glanced back and froze. At the tree line, a figure stood, Sarah, or what used to be Sarah. Her skin was pale, stretched tight, her eyes glowing red. That too wide grin split her face, and behind her, the warden loomed, its silhouette merging with hers in the fog. A whisper carried on the wind, faint but clear. "Mine, mine." Mia clutched Alex's hand, her heart pounding. They'd escaped, or so she thought. But deep down, she knew Blackwood wasn't done with them yet. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, a sterile contrast to the rotting damp of Blackwood forest. Alex lay in the bed, hooked to an IV, his leg bandaged from ankle to thigh. The doctors had stitched him up, pumped him full of antibiotics, and called it a miracle he'd survived the blood loss. Mia sat beside him, her arm in a sling, staring at the cracked linoleum floor. Her camera was gone, left behind in the cave, and with it, the last proof of what they'd seen. The truck driver had dropped them at the ER, muttering about "damn kids" before peeling out, and now they were alone, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "You okay?" Alex croaked, his voice rough from the sedatives. Mia didn't look up. "No, you." He managed a weak laugh, wincing as it pulled at his stitches. "Been better. At least we're out." She nodded, but her gut twisted. Out of the forest, maybe, but not free. Not really. Not really. The image of Sarah at the tree line, those glowing red eyes, that warped grin, clawed at her mind. She hadn't told Alex yet. Didn't know how. A cop had come by earlier, a stocky guy with a notepad and a skeptical frown. "Zoe, you're saying a monster chased you through the woods?" he'd ask, tapping his pen. Mia had stumbled through the story. Jake impaled, Ben's spine snapped, Sarah vanishing. But the words sounded crazy even to her. Alex had backed her up, his voice slurring from the pain meds, but the cop just shook his head. "We found your campsite. Tents were trashed, but no bodies. Probably a bear. You kids got lucky." "Lucky," Mia muttered now, the word bitter on her tongue. She'd wanted to scream at him. A bear doesn't move trees, doesn't whisper your name. But what was the point? No one would believe them. The hospital discharged Alex that afternoon, crutches clattering as they shuffled to Mia's car. The drive home was quiet, the radio off, the hum of the engine the only sound. Outside, the world felt wrong. Too bright, too normal. Mia kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting red eyes in the back seat. Alex stared out the window, his face pale, lost in his own head. Back at her apartment, Mia helped him onto the couch, then sank into a chair, exhaustion crashing over her. "We need to figure this out," she said, rubbing her temples. "What happened back there? It's not over." Alex frowned, shifting his leg. What do you mean? We got out. It's done. It's not. She leaned forward, voice low. I saw Sarah. At the end, when we hit the road. She wasn't her anymore. Her eyes were like that thing's. He stared at her, the color draining from his face. You're saying she's... what? Possessed? I don't know. But that journal, it becomes us. What if it's still coming for us? A knock rattled the door, sharp and sudden. Mia jumped, her heart slamming against her ribs. She crept over, peering through the peephole. A delivery guy stood there, holding a package. She opened the door a crack, signing for it with shaky hands. The box was small, unmarked, heavier than it looked. Who's it from? Alex asked as she tore it open. No label. Inside was a USB drive, scratched and worn. Mia's stomach dropped. This isn't good. She plugged it into her laptop, Alex leaning over her shoulder. A single video file popped up. No name, just a timestamp from 2 days ago. The day that escaped. She clicked play, and the screen flickered to life. Grainy footage showed Blackwood Forest at dusk, the camera shaky, held by someone breathing hard. A voice, Jake's, muttered, "This is nuts, man." The lens panned across the trees, catching their campsite untouched then. Laughter echoed. Sarah's, light and nervous. Then a growl rumbled, low and wet, and the camera swung toward the sound. Red eyes flared in the dark, and Jake's scream cut off as the feed went black. Mia's hands shook, tears welling up. That's from our trip. How'd this get here? Alex gripped the couch, knuckles white. Someone found his phone. Or the video restarted on its own, the screen glitching. This time, it wasn't Jake's footage. The camera hovered over the wreckage of their camp. Tents shredded, the creek running red with blood. A figure stepped into frame. Sarah, her head cocked at an odd angle, skin pale and veined with black. Her voice hissed through the speakers, distorted. You left me. Mia slammed the laptop shut, her breath hitching. That's not possible. She's gone. Alex's phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up. A text from an unknown number. Look outside. They froze, eyes darting to the window. Mia crept over, pulling the curtain back. The street below was empty, street lights flickering in the dusk. But in the alley across the road, shadows shifted. Tall, thin, red eyes glinting before it melted into the dark. We need answers? Mia said, grabbing her keys. Library now? They drove to the city library, Alex hobbling on crutches as Mia dug through old records. She found a book buried in the archives, Legends of the Hollows, a crumbling tome from the E50s. A chapter on Blackwood caught her eye. The warden, a spirit bound by blood, claims intruders to guard its domain. Some say it's not alone. Sister forests stretch across the world, each with its own sentinel. Escape is rare. Survival is temporary. Mia, read aloud, her voice trembling. Those who leave carry its mark. It finds them, through dreams, through shadows, until they return, or become part of it. Alex rubbed his face. So it's not just Blackwood, it's a network. And we're tagged. That night, the nightmare started. Mia woke screaming, drenched in sweat, the warden's claws slashing through her dreams. Alex thrashed on the couch, muttering Sarah's name. The next morning, her phone buzzed with static, a garbled whisper leaking through. Mine. Mine. She threw it across the room, the screen cracking. Weeks passed, the city a blur of normalcy they couldn't trust. Mia scoured online forums. Nosleep, creepypasta threads, finding whispers of similar forests. Hollow pines in Oregon, deedroot in Maine. Survivors posted frantic warnings. It follows you. It waits. One thread chilled her. A photo of a man, eyes glowing red, grinning in a mirror. The caption read, "I escaped. Now I'm this. Alex's leg healed, but his eyes grew hollow, staring at nothing for hours. I hear her, he said one night. Voice flat. Sarah. She's calling me back. Mia grabbed his arm. Fight it. We're not going back. But the pull was stronger than either of them. One evening, Mia found a new video online, live streamed from Blackwood. A group of campers laughed, setting up tents, oblivious. The trees shifted subtly, unnoticed by them. Then the feed glitched, screams erupting as red eyes flared. The camera fell, rolling across the dirt, and stopped on a face. Alex. He stared blankly, unblinking, as the warden's claws closed around his throat. The stream cut to static. Mia bolted to the couch. He was gone. His crutches lay abandoned, the front door ajar. Panic clawed at her chest. No, no, no! She grabbed her keys, racing to Blackwood, the road blurring through tears. She reached the forest at dawn, the tree line silent and still. Alex stood at the edge, motionless, his back to her. Alex! She yelled, running toward him. He turned, and her blood ran cold. His eyes glowed red, his grin too wide, splitting his face like the warden's. Behind him, the trees parted, revealing Sarah, pale, veined, grinning, and Jake, his chest, a ruin of roots and bone, red eyes blazing. You left us, Alex said, his voice layered with a growl. Now you're ours. Mia stumbled back, the forest closing in, roots snaking toward her feet. She turned to run, but a whisper stopped her, her own voice echoing from the trees. Mine! The last thing she saw was Alex's hand reaching out, claws glinting where fingers used to be. Days later, a hiker found her car on the roadside, empty. Blackwood stood silent, a single oak creaking as its bark twisted into a new face. Mia's, frozen in a scream. A car engine hummed in the distance, tires crunching gravel. The forest waited, patient and hungry, for its next visitors.